It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, June 20th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's going to take another look at James Hagens and some more NHL draft possibilities.
Let's do it.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are going to dig a little deeper into James Hagens because it's seeming more and more likely that he might be there for the Flyers at 6.
Yep.
We are going to talk about draft prospect defenseman Cam Reid for the 22 pick. And we are going to get into your poll results on goals and benchmarks for Matvei Michkov in his season 2. First up, Ethan Bear is a defenseman who's officially on the market. The Washington Capitals have given him permission to talk to other teams ahead of free agency. And he's a really interesting case because he started out as a strong depth defenseman for Edmonton and then kind of was a journeyman for a couple of years, had to deal with the player assistance program for a little bit, and then actually played in Hershey for all of this season in the Capitals.
I mean, it was hard to break into the Capitals lineup, to be fair.
No doubt. No doubt. He had 10 goals, 36 assists in 62 games in Hershey, but they did call him up as a depth option for the playoff run. So they did see something in him. Definitely a strong season in Hershey, and it was kind of a redemption arc year for him. So thoughts on the Flyers potentially signing him?
Yeah, I mean, I think he would be a quality get. I don't think the price would break the bank at all. I think he's still looking for redemption at the NHL level. It would be good to get it with a team like the Flyers. They would treat him great. I do think most likely he's still a bottom pairing guy, but you know, that's fine. He could fill in. He could play a little up if he had to. I like his game. He's not a star, but he's a good, solid player. Like he's an NHL quality defenseman. He's not, a big time defenseman, but that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, if they don't get him, it's fine. I think the Flyers have some depth defensemen that can serve that role. But I also think Bear has a perspective of having played in the NHL that some of these other guys don't. And he knows like what it takes a little bit more and he's been through a lot. And so I do think that there's some extra motivation there that I think would be helpful to have around.
Yeah, I mean, he buys you time. So it's like you having him means you don't have to rush Oliver Bonk for another, 3 months into the season. That's good. That's a positive.
Yeah, I agree. All right. On yesterday's show, we talked about the Flyers draft strategy, what we thought it would be, what we thought it should be, and any pitfalls and all of that. We talked a little bit about James Hagens on that, but not really enough. And we haven't done an in-depth look at him since January, since really around World Juniors at his game. And we've said we're going to go back into it, mostly because some lists out there have suggested that he might still be available for the Flyers at 6 and would be a good option for them. And so let's do it because, the thing about James Hagens that a lot of people have doubts about is can he be that top center that the Flyers need given his size? And as we know, Russ, you have him at the top of your list and you think he would be a great pick. So what do you see in his game?
Look, there's a fraction of a chance he could be a 1C, but a lot of guys are a fraction of a chance for a 1C. Jet Luchenko's a chance at a 1C. I don't know if Jet Luchenko can do it. Most guys can't do it. I mean, that's that you draft. A lot of times they can't. That's just the way it
Well,
is.
there's only 32
Right.
of
There's
them
some
in
of
the
the
whole
ones that are playing there.
NHL.
I think he's a destined top line winger for sure and a 2C. And again, Ryan Nugent Hopkins comes to mind as far as like distribution of how a guy is, not the same kind of play, but like
Right,
nobody ever complained about Ryan Nugent Hopkins, and you wouldn't complain about James Hagens. There's a lot to like. And so, the first thing is you got to remember he's playing against guys that are 21 years old on average, sometimes
right, because
22.
he's at BC. He
Yes.
just played a year at BC very successfully, by the way.
When you're playing in the CHL, you're playing against guys 18 and a half years old on average. It's a big difference. So, do I think if James Hagens was in the CHL, OHL, any of those leagues, do I think he would have more than a point a game, be like a point and a half a game? Absolutely. So, and I'm not alone in that. A lot of people think that. So, but that's not why I have him top ranked. I have him top ranked because he has excelled everywhere he's gone. Now, if you want to tell me that that year wasn't that great this year, I mean, again, he's a point a game player. He brings them
Mhm,
back. He tries to bring him back, and I think it was the Big East Championship. He didn't, but they lost 2-1. He was the one. He scores the overtime winner to have him advance. He wins a gold medal, but it's not good enough. But he has 9 points. Like he has more than a point a game. They win they win a gold medal. He's a reason. He had a big goal in that series too. When because sometimes they'll say, well, against that team was kind of like garbage points. Okay, but then it wasn't. And so like that wasn't good enough. People just talk themselves out of it as far as prognosticators. I don't know if teams have. And so now I think that's why you're seeing this rebound buzz stuff where teams are trying to trade up to get them because yeah, if all of a sudden the team sees James Hagens fall into fourth because of circumstances, they're going to want him. Fourth, fifth, sixth, they're going to want him. They're going to want him because he's smart, he's fast, he is not weak. He was never weak, and now he's come in at 186 pounds at the combine. You could look at the picture that I posted on my Instagram, and his upper body is much bigger, very similar to what happened with Lane Hudson after his
mhm.
draft year. Hagens did it now, and that should tell something. And I think teams noticed. I think teams paid attention. Now, it still doesn't mean he doesn't fall to the Flyers at that spot. And I don't know where the Flyers stand on him. All I know is they were at the World Juniors, their whole crew, and they heavily scouted him the same way they heavily scouted Frundell and Eklund. So they know about him. And so I look at it and I say, okay, taking all these things into consideration, he's going to go back to BC, and that's the best thing for him. But
Right.
they know that already. So if he doesn't go first overall, that's the best thing for him in a sense because there won't be this pressure to rush him into the league. Because even if I drafted first overall, if it was me and I drafted him, I still would be sending him back to BC, and that would be good for him.
Yeah. So on yesterday's show, I said I would pick O'Brien over Hagens. And the reason I said that was a combination of size. And I thought O'Brien had a little bit more flash to his game.
Mhm.
And I think that compared to Jet Luchenko's game, I thought would be a good
Yeah,
balance
sometimes
between,
organizational fit and structure
right,
matters. I mean, it
right.
matters a lot.
Right, and so I just wanna make it clear that's why I went
Yeah,
in that direction. However, I still really like James Hagens, and I think one of the other things that kinda popped up a little bit at World Juniors was, is he this successful because he's on a line with Gabe Perreault and Ryan Leonard? And how much did Hagens drive the play there? And I think that people were mistaken a little bit,
I think
like
so.
defending you, Russ, in your opinion of him, because I think that Hagens was a play driver on that line, and I think he could have done just as well on a different line. They just strategically that line made a lot of sense, and they won the gold medals, it was to a
Yeah,
good
like,
end,
why
right?
weren't you going with that line? If you didn't, you're crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there was no way around that. I also think a point a game at NCAA your first year is phenomenal. And I think that given more experience and time, he will get there. And I don't think that size ultimately will be an issue for him. I think he'll figure out how to use his body
Absolutely.
effectively, and I do like everything about his game. I think the only question I have is face-offs and if that's an issue for
He's
him.
good. No, he's good on faceoffs. I don't have an issue at all on that. Uh, but again, I don't know. If he goes to 1C, maybe there's an issue. If
Right,
he goes to 2C, I don't think
right.
there's any issue. So it depends on who's there at the team. If Jetlichenko's the 1C, then there's no issue. So this was one of the better years, if not the best, that a NTDP player had as a first year college freshman. Just to give you an example, like Matthew, well, we can go with Austin Matthews. He went overseas, so obviously that he's out of the equation because he didn't go to college, right? But like, you think Matt Boldy's pretty good, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. His first year at BC, he had 26 points in 34 games. Like, I'm just, and if you want to say it was completely Ryan Leonard, driving and everything, well, Ryan Leonard in the NHL had 1 point in the regular season and 1 point in the playoffs.
Yeah,
So,
I
and he's
love
a really
Ryan
good
Leonard,
player. No, no,
right?
and we all do. But I'm just saying, I can think that pokes holes in that argument a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and that's why I do not buy the argument that Hagens was just kind of riding the
Yeah,
wave
he
of the
wasn't.
line he was on. He was not. He was
It is
absolutely
very hard,
a
no
big
matter
part of
who.
that team.
Sorry. Yes, it's very hard as a true freshman to have a Macklin Celebrini kind of year. It is. Like, that's nobody
Yeah,
should
your
be
usage
compared to
isn't
that.
gonna be where it needs to be,
Right.
like
Nobody should be compared
99%
to
of the
that.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
an anomaly.
So, if you had to put money on it, will Hagens be available at 6?
No. No, I think there is too much interest from all these other teams to get him before the Flyers get a chance. And it still doesn't mean it's going to happen, but the interest is there. So that's why I wouldn't put money on it.
All right. Well, we'll see if the Flyers have a shot at him in 1 week. Holy crap. We
Yeah, I got to
are
pack soon.
1 week away. Speaking of the draft, we are going to talk about a defensive option for the Flyers at 22, and that's Cam Reid. We'll get to that coming up next. The Stanley Cup playoffs may be over, but it is the peak portion of baseball season, and there's never been a better time to see it live. Gametime makes getting in the building fast and affordable. Gametime gives you last-minute ticket deals, zone deals with deep discounts, panoramic seat views, and all-in pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ticket prices often drop the closer you get to first pitch, so you can score big without overpaying. You can save huge with their zone deals, picking the best seats at the lowest price. And right now, zone deals are offering 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matches as well. Game Time includes fees up front and backs every order with their ticket coverage guarantee, covering cancellations, job loss, and even offering 24-hour returns. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. The Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. As we said, it is draft week next week, so we are going to be focused pretty heavily on that on our coverage next week. Plus, on Monday, we'll have a new nemesis of the week and a new poll question leading up to Friday's draft. Cam Reid is an intriguing option for the Flyers at the 22nd overall pick. He is essentially the same size as James Hagens here, just a skitch taller. He's basically 6 feet, but I guess technically not if you measure him in his bare feet. He plays for the Kitchener Rangers in the OHL. He's definitely a play driver, and I would say, like, one of the things that stands out about his game is his quarterbacking of
Yeah.
their power play, and if you look at his stats, 33 power play assists this past season, which is really good. He's not the guy that's gonna take the shot, but he will absolutely quarterback it and distribute the puck to the right guy to score that goal.
That Cam sounds a lot like another Cam we know
Yes.
in a lot of ways, but still, this one's different. This one's starting off faster for sure.
Mhm.
He does still have to build himself up though, like the other Cam. Like, I saw him at the combine. I have a picture of him, and it's like, yeah, would like to see a little more there. So he's going to need to work on that. Speed's really good, like you said. Power play time's really good. He can defend. Now, is he going to be a top pairing guy? No. I'm not even sure he's a second pairing guy. He may be like that number 5 who plays the power play, and that's fine. I mean, in this draft. I think that's kind of like what you're looking at in a lot of cases when you're at that number at that point. So that's okay. He's smart. He's a good player. So the decision they'll have to make is, do you want this guy? And unfortunately, they're going to say he's 5'11" or 6 foot, whatever. He's listed at 6. Or do they want to just skew bigger? Like, that's going to be the
Right.
decision. But on his own, he's a really good player. It's just, again, no team is going to want, like, I don't know, let's just say out of a starting 6, 3 less than average sized NHL defensemen. They're not going to do it anymore. They'll have 1 or 2, but they won't have 3.
Right.
So they have to kind of do the math and see what that's going to look like in 4 years.
Right, and I think the Flyers have to decide if the ones they have in the system are ones they wanna go with,
Right.
and would somebody like Cam Reid be a replacement for somebody already in the Flyers
Correct.
system? So, I think that, we joke about him being a lot like Cam York, but there are differences for
There
sure. I
are.
would say, like, we talked about the skating, but I think that his mobility, I think, is a little bit stronger than Cam York's, at least the way Cam York's game has developed in the
Right.
NHL. I think Cam
Right.
York had probably stronger mobility when he was
He
younger
did.
relative to the guys around him,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I
It
think
just didn't
just
never got like it didn't keep up with the league.
yeah, and the thing about Cam Reid is that he doesn't necessarily create space, but he's so good at taking advantage of the space when it's there, and that's partially because of his skating
Yeah, his
and
skating's
being so
excellent.
strong, and especially transitional skating,
Yeah.
which a lot of guys can build up speed, like north to south speed, but Cam Reid's transitional skating stands out a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, it does, and he's a smart kid, and I think he'll adapt fine. I think he'll play in the NHL, but when you draft him, you have to decide, because he's not like a shutdown defender and you're getting him for his offense, how many
Right,
points? What are we talking
right.
points wise? Now, the problem is a lot of that is going to depend on the team's power play, because he's going to
Mhm.
be like a 60% power play point guy. And that's okay to have those guys, but you have to make sure you have a good power play. I think the Flyers' future power play will be better than what we see now, but I can't tell you to what degree yet. So that's what you have to kind of look at it and say, if it was this, and you have Luchenko on it, and you have Michkov on it, and whoever else, if you want to just say Hagens, fine. If you want to say somebody else, fine. And these are the guys in 5 years that are on the power play. Then yeah, I think Cam Reid's fine, because there'll be enough points for him. And so yeah, you just have to make sure that you're getting him for the right reasons.
Yeah, and I think that predicates the Flyers picking a top center that they really, really want at 6, and thinking that this is the exact defenseman that they want,
Right.
right? Relative to the other defensemen in the late 2nd round, or the late 1st round, excuse me, that are also high potential, but maybe not 100% there yet.
Right. I mean, they do have some size in Lehigh for sure. And we've talked about Hunter McDonald and other guys, and you'll see how they progress. Uh, if it's Cam Reid or Charlie Trethewey, I think Reid is better offensively today. Trethewey has a
Yeah,
lot of runway. He's younger. But
yeah.
right now it's Cam Reid. So, if that's what you're looking for, then you're probably going with him. If you're looking for more of a shutdown guy, then you're not going with him. And, so it really does depend on that first pick, what you did, and then how you view what you currently have.
Right, and I think, I was kinda trying to figure out why he didn't make Team Canada
Hmm.
for U18s, because he was at their selection camp
Yeah.
and didn't make the cut, and so, kind of the things he needs to improve on is getting beat one-on-one, and I think that that is something that Team Canada is gonna look out for,
Oh, yeah.
because there's gonna be a lot of scoring on the rush at U18s, and if he can't defend against it, that's the problem, and to
Yeah.
me, that's why he wasn't on the
Yeah, it
team,
was
but
about
what's
team
your take?
construction. Yeah, I think it was about team construction. And their team construction wasn't good enough. Like, we all know
Right.
that.
Well, yeah.
Well, not no, actually, U18, I'm thinking World Juniors. No, U18 it was fine. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, that's yeah, it is just about how that roster is, how that coach views them. It has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. But, your point about his scoring is there. He was 10th in the OHL for defensemen in scoring in the regular season this year, 7th in goals. He was 4th on the team overall in Kitchener, which is pretty solid
Yeah.
for a defenseman. And, he was on the leadership group there wearing an A. So I do think there's a lot of promise here. And again, it's just do the Flyers have too much of similar to him already, and they want to go in a different direction at this high of a pick, and that maybe they do want to go with a goalie or a different forward at 22.
Yeah, I'm looking over that U18 team, and one of the things that kind of comes through is they had other guys that are around the same height, maybe not as good offensively, but around the same height. And so, like, you can't make your team too small, and they were really good. They won the gold medal, so it's hard to
Hmm.
argue with it.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. But an interesting option. There's several mocks out there that have the Flyers taking him that I don't know that I necessarily agree with, but I just thought, it's important that we discuss all these guys that are in
Yeah.
that window for the Flyers at 22. We'll see what they decide to do, and we will definitely be thinking about it and, changing our minds about it. Or at least I will per my nemesis of the week over the next week leading up to it. In the meantime, on Monday's show, in addition to the nemesis of the week, we asked you what you thought a successful second season in the NHL looked like for Matvei Michkov after his naming to the NHL All Rookie team this year. We're going to get to those results coming up next. All right, so this week's off-season poll about Matvei Michkov and his potential this upcoming season, and I am so floored by these results. It is so fun doing these polls every week because we never know
I
what the
didn't look,
results are
so
going to be.
when you tell me, it's gonna be the first time I hear it.
Yeah, so the options that we gave you in terms of, and we know all of these things are important, but it's what is the key benchmark for
Right.
success. So the options we gave you were has to lead the team in scoring, has to score a minimum of 35 goals, has to earn a minimum of 25 power play points, and show clear improvement in his defensive game. So those were your four options. The top vote getter was has to lead the team in scoring with 33%.
That's tough. Travis Konecny is gonna have something to say about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna love that battle though,
Oh,
that
yeah.
is for sure.
It's a good
I
problem
think
to
it's
have.
yeah, I think it's gonna be fun because I do think it will be a battle. I think Michkov is gonna want that crown at
Mhm.
the end of the year, and I think Travis Konecny is gonna be like, not you,
I
young
agree.
whippersnapper,"
No,
and I
he's
think
competitive.
it's gonna help the Flyers overall. They're both super competitive,
Yeah.
and they can both be, just a little bit testy about it,
Yeah,
and I
sure.
love it.
No, it's good. It's
But
good for
I
the
I
team.
think that's interesting
It
that
is.
33% of y'all think that it's a possibility that he could achieve that benchmark, and he should attempt to achieve that benchmark.
He should, but again, I don't think he's going to have a sophomore slump, but we've seen players do it, and so I
Mhm.
always leave open the opportunity, and that's just because sometimes it's hockey and that's what happens, but I don't think it'll happen, but it isn't impossible.
Now, the number 2 vote getter here at 25% was show clear improvement in defensive game. And that was really interesting to me because I think that we focus a lot on the offensive side of
Yeah,
his game, and 3 of the 4 options were related to his offensive game, and that's, what stands out about him. But we do know that he does need to improve his defensive play a little bit and be a more complete player. And so that stood out to me as really interesting that that was 25% of y'all.
yeah, I think these folks understand that if he does fix that part of his game, he'll get more ice time. He'll be rewarded with more ice time, and all those situations. If it's bad, he will lose a little ice time. It won't be like a benching like Torts, but he'll lose some ice time. And
Yeah.
so, that's just the way hockey is. So I fully get it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of coaches say, and Tort said it, of course, that you create offense from defense,
Yep.
and Michkov has to do the same to
Yes.
earn the ice time in order to get the scoring that he needs. So I do get it to a certain degree. I just find that it was just interesting to have a
Yeah.
defensive side of it be the number two
I mean,
here,
look how
and then
good Claude Giroux got on defense. Like, I don't think he was a defensive wizard the minute he walked up, but he got really good at it.
yeah, and it's interesting because we had a comment saying from Jokesy Funtime, which is a great screen name,
That is.
Michkov needs to work on his skating mechanics. He looks like he's laboring when trying to generate straight line speed. Mechanics look different, but remind me a lot of Giroux, who also has not been a great skater throughout his career and really limited his effectiveness in
No,
later years.
he's right. And we've seen it and we saw him get winded in games and it could all be connected. And so I expect some of that'll get fixed. Will it all get fixed? Who knows? I mean, the fact that it didn't get fixed for Giroux to the point maybe that, some people would be thrilled with, did it really hurt him in his career? No, it did not.
Right. And at the Mr. Philadelphia commented, uh, a bit much, meaning referring to the benchmarks that we had set
Yeah.
in the choices, a bit much when you play on a very bad team that has no shot at signing any good free agents at all. I think he just needs to step up his defensive game. And I think there's a point to be made there that if the Flyers don't have the support around him to support these
Yeah, he could only
offensive
do so
goals,
much.
he can only do so much. And this is a good opportunity for him to improve that defensive game.
Yeah, no question. And that's the thing. At some point, and remember, he is young. So at some point, he'll be the guy that makes the guys around him better. He's not there yet.
Right, I agree, and, so the other 2 options, which had the benchmarks of minimum 35 goals and minimum 25 power play points, were tied at 21%, for the other 2. So there was pretty closely even distribution here.
Yeah.
There was not a runaway winner for sure, which shows that there's a lot he can build off on
Yeah, no
from his first
question.
season.
I mean, I'm happy we didn't get any comments that said he's a bum. So that's good. At least there's nothing like that. So no, everybody's like, happy to have this guy, and that's great. And I think he feels that.
Right, and, we had a couple other, I think, key comments here. Jetpack Miner said, "I'd like to see his shot improve. His shot is okay right now, but if he wants to eventually pot 40 plus goals, he's gonna need a quick and hard snapshot. If he is to play the point on the power play, he'll need to develop a slap shot as well, which I don't think we've seen much of yet."
Yeah, I haven't really seen his one timer. So I agree.
Yeah.
That could come out. I'm sure he's going to practice offense, like right. That's
Mhm.
80% of the time he's going to practice that on his own during the summer. So yeah, I think he'll work on a few things.
Yeah, I agree about the snapshot comment. I
Hmm.
think that's an underutilized shot for some of
Because
these
it's quick.
guys. Yeah, and I think building that sort of skill to round out his game will be helpful, especially as other teams learn how to read his play
Yeah,
a
of
little bit
course. I mean,
more.
that's the thing. You could really, and it's also about a goaltending not setting on you. So the
Mhm.
quicker you get it off the stick, the harder it is for him to make that read on you.
Yeah, so I think that's a really key aspect of his game that will have to improve in order to hit
Yeah.
those benchmarks like we're talking about. And Cora Corsi commented, after having his first season being a good one, but could have been better, I can see Michkov with 39 goals, 41 assists, with more minutes per game and an improved power play, and just the desire to be better being some of the reasons. He understanding that improving his defensive game is going to help him and is take the team to another level. While he may never be a great defensive player, being above average will be a major improvement. And
Yeah,
yeah,
sure. I
that's spot
mean,
on.
yeah, when you have players with offensive ability like that, you just want them to be decent defensively. That's it.
Right.
They get
And just
better than
not
that.
get beat every time
Right.
going the other
I mean, look
way.
what Austin Matthews has done now defensively. So
Yeah.
like it could be done, and it might take years. Even Mitch Marner is better defensively.
Uh,
And he had no defense at the beginning. So
right. I'm like, are we allowed to say Mitch Marner's name anymore? Is
why
that
not?
cursed in hockey circles now?
No, no, it'll be cursed in Toronto forever, but not anywhere else.
That is fair. That is fair. Yeah, that is going to be a whole thing where he goes. But very interested to see where Matvei Michkov's second season goes, and all of this is very good. Excited for y'all to answer our poll question next week when we give it to you on Monday. So stay tuned for that. And as a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you've got your last minute draft questions or any Flyers thoughts, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no off season. It brings you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with local coverage you love from Locked On. I'm on the show every Friday, and you can find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great weekend, everyone.